This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast, session number 163, Hypnotic Calibration, with Sean Michael Andrews.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Hey there, this is Jason Linett, and welcome back to a content-packed session, reconnecting with my good friend Sean Michael Andrews, who's been on the program now several times. He was the second interview back, I believe, on session number 3, reconnecting several times over the years. And then also the two of us taught a class out in Las Vegas back last year in March 2017, the Master Hypnotist course, which was a multiple-day event with students from all over the world, and it was a sellout event, which actually that event is now available to you as a digital access program. You can check that out over at masterhypnotistcourse.com, where you can get instant access to the 36 lessons in terms of advanced hypnotic strategy, instant inductions, rapid inductions, techniques for change, as well as deep diving into various advanced strategies. Check that out over at masterhypnotistcourse.com. There's two cool bonuses with that program. First of all, in addition to the actual online library, which you get instant access to right away, no matter where you are in the world, we're going to ship you a commemorative flash drive with all the content downloaded for you. It's about 30 gigabytes of stuff. That way you don't have to download all the videos, audios, and all the documents that go along with it. Also, once you complete an online exam, we're going to ship you a Master Hypnotist certificate as well, and it's going to be signed by both of us. And payment plans are available on that program. Check it out at masterhypnotistcourse.com. And this conversation you're about to listen to was actually a webinar that we did earlier this week, yet the content was so good, I wanted to share it with you, my fellow podcast listeners. The presentation was titled Hypnotic Calibration: Powerful Results with your clients. So we talk about customizing to the client. We talk about incorporating new lessons and learnings, as well as collaborating not just with our clients, but also with fellow hypnotic practitioners as well, which in a rare moment, I'm going to give you an option here. You can either continue to listen to this podcast recording, or I won't be offended if you stop right here and instead head over to worksmarthypnosis.com and track down the show notes with this specific session, because I will repost the replay of the presentation as well. So, couple of options. You can keep listening to the two of us in this format that's about to jump in about 20 seconds from now, or stop right here, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com, because I'm going to post the replay of the webinar in this podcast show listing as well. Again, for the entire experience, head over to masterhypnotistcourse.com. That's where you can get instant access to the entire Vegas course that Sean and I did together last year, sellout event with nearly 3 dozen attendees from all around the world, deep diving into advanced strategies, demonstrations, techniques for change, and a format that is so cool and so unique. I know you're going to love it. Check that out, masterhypnotistcourse.com. And with that, let's jump directly into this collaborative conversation. This is session number 163, Hypnotic Collaboration, though calibration is also good. Take 2. Don't edit that out. Session number 163, Hypnotic Collaboration, with Sean Michael Andrews. We'll be jumping in just a few moments. This presentation is Hypnotic Collaboration, getting great results with clients. You're down in Georgia now, right?
I am. Augusta, Georgia.
How's the practice going now that you've migrated from Maryland to Germany and now Georgia?
Well, actually, I've sort of changed the business somewhat. I'm trying to chase the clients away because I want to spend more time researching and writing. So, but you know what? Sometimes they just find you. And if you don't have somebody to hand them off to, like I used to have when I was in Maryland, there used to be this hypnotist in Northern Virginia that I trusted and I could send clients to, but I don't have that advantage here in Augusta.
Well, I know a lot of great people down there. I'll have to hook you up. No, I share a similar through line of still seeing a lot of clients, though, the travel schedule with speaking, with various events that are going on, getting into the mindsets of it becoming much more effective and a much more direct model, which kind of leads into our topic today. It looks like the room is filling up, so let's jump in. Our presentation here is Hypnotic Collaboration, getting great results with your clients. And there's a couple of different points here that just we're going to have a conversation around different themes that have been addressed, whether it's in various groups online or things that recently I've been getting questions about and wanting to share this conversation with you. Before we jump into this course, you've probably been seeing some emails as well as some announcements online about the Master Hypnotist course. This was a class that Sean and I taught together live in Las Vegas back in March 2017, and it was professionally shot, edited, and it's now available online at masterhypnotistcourse.com. That was a great time, wasn't it?
It was. That was so much fun. I mean, there are a few places that are better than Las Vegas for holding a class.
Absolutely. And to get the experience of being there as if you were live in the room, it's a 36 lesson course you can get instant access to online. Head over to masterhypnotistcourse.com. And there's 2 bonuses that you're going to get in addition to that. In addition to the online library, no matter where you are in the world, we're going to mail you a commemorative USB flash drive with all the high-def videos downloaded for you. So whether you're in Georgia, whether you're in Virginia, whether you're, I just sold something in Luxembourg. Yay,
really?
Going international. So no matter where you are in the world, we're going to ship that out to you. In addition to that, there's going to be an exam attached to the Master Hypnotist course. So you're going to get your own Master Hypnotist certification in the mail as well. Check that out, masterhypnotistcourse.com. So let's chat for a couple of moments here. There's been a lot of talk about customizing to the client. How do we actually take our process and actually begin to interact with the client, go through that intake interview process, and now that we're actually into the work, how is it we customize for the individual? Sean, what are some ways that you go about doing that?
Well, one of the things that I think is really important is establishing good rapport with your client. And then once in establishing rapport with them, though, you can get a good feel for what type of person this is. Is this a person that wants to have you do the work, or do they want a more collaborative style when you're doing the therapy? It's every client is different. Some clients think that it's magic. I've had clients. So just a quick story.
Yeah,
I had a client one time who came to me. And she had seen someone that she called a healer, a shaman. And in her mind, the shaman had left some baggage in her mind and had messed her up. And the funny thing was, she had seen my videos. And just from watching my videos on YouTube, she got it in her head that although that shaman was very, very powerful, this guy seems even more powerful than the shaman. So I could have tried to convince her that that's impossible. Someone, this person did not put a hex on you, but that wasn't the right way to go with her. So what I did was I accepted that she felt that I was more powerful than the shaman, and then she and I together were going to be far more powerful than this person who left this baggage in her mind. And so that was the way I conducted the session, and it worked for her. It worked beautifully for her. Now that was, I don't think I've ever had a client where that was the appropriate way to take it. But for her, it was exactly what she needed. You need to be a bit of a chameleon.
There's a beautiful aspect of that. There's a guy who came into my office one time, and we're chatting, we're having the conversation before the process begins. And then suddenly his tone shifts, and he looks at me and he goes, "Is it true you can make me do things I normally wouldn't do?" And I'm riding a bit of a fence here because I'm thinking, is it a concern, like a misconception that he would have that prevents him from going into hypnosis? We know that there's one thing that could prevent someone from going into that hypnotic state, and it's a fear of the process. So if it's a fear, then that's something we need to address. Though, out of curiosity, I just kind of respond with a bit of a smile. Well, I don't know. Do you think that's what you need? And suddenly, the tone shifts in the conversation as he's going, Yeah, I think that's what I need today. To which I had my, I'm paperless in my office, take the iPad, set it off to the side and go, all right, close your eyes. Which I want to highlight something inside of that, kind of like your story there. It's not necessarily that we are telling them we can do these things. It's part of the expectation. This often goes against some of the thinking that's out there of, overtly saying with hypnosis, I can't make you do things you normally wouldn't do. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, if that grammar makes sense. In many ways, it's harnessing whatever expectation they would possibly have. I'd put it this way, that they are contacting a hypnotist because they have the expectation that perhaps that's one of those things within our tool bank of things that we can do. Now, of course, I don't have low rolling fog in the office. I don't have spotlights and dark eye makeup. Instead, it's letting it become this natural experience where, there's another story of woman comes in and the story is, I don't know if I really want to quit smoking, but I know I need to. And that's usually a bit of a red flag. Though it becomes a session where clearly there's enough motivation. And that session probably had more hypnotic phenomenon than my stage hypnosis show that I do sometimes, where here is this reality that she was holding on to. And we just had to find a way to break that reality where open your eyes, look at that arm, it won't bend. The more you look at it, it gets even more solid. The hand is stuck to the chair. What does that feel like? And engaging in that hypnotic phenomenon in such a way that, again, is shifting that perception of just how real and how solid these things were. And then at times using that to her advantage. So you're right. It's about harnessing that expectation. Let's go to that intake time with the client. As you're there, you're talking to them. Are there specific questions that you're often looking for, specific, tendencies and mindsets that you're looking to get from them in order to help you to guide what techniques to use, when, where, and why?
I think the biggie is, what is that particular person's motivation? And you brought this to mind when you were talking about that smoking client. And this is one of the reasons why scripts can be a problem, because the woman, she said, I need to stop smoking. Well, why does she need to stop smoking? Now, if she's independently wealthy, I can talk all day about how she's going to save money when she stops smoking, but it's meaningless to her. It's not one of her motivators. So when I am with the client, I want to know, what is that client's motivation to make this particular change, to lose the weight, to stop the smoking, to get on that airplane without fear. And then I'm taking notes, and they write the script for me. She tells me that she's really afraid that she's going to get COPD in her old age. She's really afraid that she's not going to be around for her children. She hates the fact that when she walked up the stairs to get to my old office, that she was out of breath. And so she tells me everything that I need to know to feed back to her to make her successful in that session. So that's the first thing that I get from the intake.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd share there's a document that I'd often use with my clients where it's just getting the benefits and then tracking them forward. And the mindset is getting my client to hypnotically future pace themselves before they even come into the office. So part of my forms are asking, what are some of the outcomes you want to create here? What's your goal a month from now? What's your goal a year from now? What's your goal 5 years from now? And it's getting into those specific nuances that's helping me to guide that process. Though you're absolutely right. This mindset of letting the client write the script for you, which I think we both mean that figuratively rather than, hey, before we jump in, sit at my computer for 30 minutes and type up a hypnotic script. By the way, here's a lesson on hypnotic language patterns. We're asking the questions where they're feeding into our platforms. I'd mention another thing here, that there's a segment. Yes, weight loss can often be a very multifaceted issue where we're dealing with the emotions, we're dealing with the family dynamic, we're dealing with everything around the weight issue itself. Though I'm curious to ask you this, in your weight loss approach, correct me on this, you're often starting, as I would say, just with the nuts and bolts in the first session, the habits, the behaviors, the eat less of this, eat more of that, increasing the activity. You're starting in a very literal format at the beginning of your weight loss process?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I'll do about, give or take, I'll do 4 sessions for weight loss, because I found that it's really one of the most challenging things that we work with hypnosis. I mean, the smoking, they don't need to smoke, but they do need to eat. So I'll start out uh, with direct suggestions for healthy habits. For instance, making the right food choices and drinking plenty of water, and exercising and controlling the portions. And that's pretty much what the first session is all about. I Nowadays I don't even get into age regressions with a first session with weight loss. In fact, sometimes I don't do the age regression at all.
Hmm.
When I was younger, I used to regress for everything. You bite your fingernails. Let's do an age regression. I used to, I mean, and it's funny. I thought about this the other day, and I was doing aggression. By golly, we were
Age
going
aggression.
to go back, whether you needed it or not. So I start out. I start out with a direct suggestion, and then, if necessary, if they are not losing the weight at the rate that I believe they should be losing it, then yeah, I'll do some uncovering work, some hypnoanalysis in the old Ellman style. But it's not always necessary.
And I think it's the main point here that, again, it's that customization to the client that, you brought up the example earlier that if they're, and I've had this example many, many times. I actually just heard from this guy that I met back in 2012. I've been checking in with people who quit smoking with me many years ago for the reason of, I want the testimonials now that are saying 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and I'll give you the exact strategy. This is a place of, let's call it out, appropriate bribery. Where I've reached out to several people, and I've got actually 4 of them coming tomorrow, where the offer is, hey, here's what I'd love to do. Here's the mission statement. I want to help more people to quit smoking. And the one thing that helps me to do that better is to have stories such as yours. So love to have you come into the office, or I can come to you. We'll do a quick 5-10 minute video. I'll just ask you a couple of questions. It'll be fun. And you either have a free session on me, or I'll show up to your home with a $50 Amazon gift card as a thank you for your time, which the return on this so far has been awesome. So, but here's one of the guys I'm connecting with tomorrow that, I mean, he was a 3-pack-a-day smoker. And the reason he was quitting was he had just bought this antique car on a lease, and the payments were too high. That's why he wanted to quit smoking, which is the standard reason, of course, right? So money was a bit of a motivator, but to be fair, there were several million here, several million there. Here was the Zumba instructor who was coming into my office for weight loss. And this woman is teaching 3 exercise classes a day, 5 days a week. And she's up there doing it as well. So the exercise is pretty much in check.
Right.
It's the eating she's doing around it. Though I mirror the same thing that, as I do this work more and more, I'm using age regression less and less. Here are people that I've worked with that we just stayed within the realm of positive suggestion. I do a bit of a variation of a 6-step reframe out of NLP towards building those 3 positive outcomes and stepping inside of them, trying them on, noticing how well they fit mentally, rehearsing that success, which for those of you that have studied Dr. John Hartland's ego strengthening process, that part of his whole approach was that by increasing the confidence, by increasing the positive ego of the client, he was finding that the hypnoanalysis work wasn't as necessary. So my filter tends to be that if we hit that point where it all kind of politely hits the fan, where suddenly here's the moment at work and things got stressful and then they backslid. Hallelujah, we found a place of subconscious resistance, and age regression may be one of the categories that we actually use to go in and start to resolve what that issue would be. Back to the original question though, are there specific questions that you're asking in the process to start to navigate what needs to be addressed? Let's take that nail biter example.
Well, actually, I want to back up
Yeah,
because
go
you
for
just
it.
reminded me
And I
of
am so prepared for this presentation because my computer is not plugged in. So while you're talking, I'm going to disappear for a second and plug in so we don't die here. Go for it. I'm listening.
Okay, so it was a recent stop smoking thing. It was funny because I mentioned the fact that if somebody was independently wealthy, there's no sense talking to them in your session about how much money they're going to save. However, I had a recent client, and he was independently wealthy, very, very wealthy, and but one of the things that he let slip in the intake was that he had quit smoking for 2 years. A few years back, quit smoking for 2 years to win a $50 bet because it was a pool, and he and a group of guys, and whoever was went the longest without a cigarette got the money in the pool, and it was $50. And we were getting toward the end of the session, and I'm thinking, the guy's rich, so I don't bother saying how much money he's going to save because that means nothing to him. But he stopped for 2 years just to win $50. And I thought, darn it. Okay, I said, and here's the last thing, before I emerge you from hypnosis, part of me says, you're going to have trouble doing this. Part of me says that I know you've quit for years before, but there's a part of me that says, I want to challenge you. And part of me, I'm betting you. I am betting you $50 that you can't do this. I bet you that you can't do this for a year. And in fact, I'm going to mark my calendar. But the other part of me says, you're going to do this. You are. And so I'm marking my calendar for 1 year from today. And this is what I think is going to happen. What I think is that you're going to come to my office and you're going to demand your $50 because you've gone a year without smoking. And so I was betting him that he couldn't do it, but yet challenging him, take my $50 now. And I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to come back. Let's see, when was this? It was just about a month ago. So I expect to see him in about 11 months. And I expect him to knock on my door and demand his $50, and I'll pay it. I will pay it. But I'm going to double the bet then that he can't do it for 5 years.
Which, by the way, if your session rate is $50, don't use that exact strategy.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good. That's why.
Although I mentioned the 1 year, 5 years, and so forth. Yep. Here's a guy that you can look at my Yelp page, and he's there. His whole thing was, and I've never prompted for this because there's a whole dialogue inside of one of the business communities I'm a part of that the number of reviews you might get on Yelp that don't show up, and it's not because they're jerks. So let me rephrase that. It's not just because they're jerks. It's that they want to have people who are actually in their community. So if someone's left one review on Yelp, it's not going to show up because, they're not an active user of that system. And it looks as if you did exactly what it is. You sent somebody to go online and leave that review. It's when it's someone like me who I love horrible reviews for hotels because very often you go and the place is perfectly fine. Often the worse the review, the more likely I'm thinking it's probably okay, and generally it is. So to look at it from the perspective of this guy, he wrote on the forum, 1 year mark, I will leave a review on Yelp that I've stopped smoking for longer than I have in my entire life. So like, okay, cool. 1 second, I'm typing away on my iPad for a second. I go, cool. I just set a reminder for a year from today. Excellent. I'll do it. And he subsequently left the review as well. I'd mentioned back to the weight loss category, to look at it in terms of what are their specific outcomes. I hesitate to tell this story because it's speaking ill of other people, and I won't use their names, but it rhymes with no. No, I have a woman who I'm working with for weight loss that we just connected by phone because she had to reschedule an appointment. She goes, and we're dealing with the schedule, fitting things in, and just as a throwaway at the end, she goes, oh, by the way, it's working. I'm down 8 pounds this week. It's like, oh, awesome. Great. Keep it up. Yet she had done hypnosis before, and to maybe excuse that this other person was clearly using a script, but not varying from it. This is the benefit. Scripts are great as training wheels. Scripts are great as, I'd use the metaphor, like the comedian doing crowd work. They're asking the person in the audience, what do you do for a living? And this one says that they're a teacher. And suddenly he rattles off 6 minutes of really funny jokes about teachers when If you're with him in Phoenix, Arizona the next week, and there's another teacher in the audience, chances are it might be the same jokes. So you're in my office to quit biting your nails because you recently got engaged and you don't want to do your engagement photos with a closed fist.
Yeah.
I see that frequently. And well, okay, I got 6 minutes on that. You're here to quit smoking because baby's on the way and he doesn't want to be sneaking out anymore to smoke once the baby arrives. Okay, I got 8 minutes on that. These are chunks. So this other hypnotist working with this weight loss client, again, I'll excuse it because maybe it was just not varying from a script, but talking about how sexy she'll be in a bikini, which that was not her specific goals. Now, I've seen that example many times where that was their goal, and that's where we fold that into the process. Yet when it wasn't their goal, don't go there. There's a guy years ago that for the nail biting example, I have to quote his exact language. He goes, well, they don't need to be pretty. I'm not some kind of damn woman. So that's a new one in here. So the fingernails growing healthy and strong.
Right.
That was the language.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you know what? Another thing that I pick up when I'm interviewing the client is their language, their vocabulary. If I'm working with a guy who's a truck driver and talks like a truck driver, I'm going to use a completely different set of vocabulary than I'm going to use with a college professor. It's just you have to be the chameleon. You have to connect with that person. And if they're profane, I have on very rare occasions gotten a little propane myself.
I'm not rare. As soon as they use it, I go, oh, great, I get to use it as well.
Well, I was in the military. I can use that language.
There you
go. but no, it's interesting. And sometimes you just get a feeling. I remember working with a client one time, and I remember what it was. She felt like she wasn't doing a good job as a mother, and her daughter was in the room. It was a very odd setup. Very rare that I'll ever have another person in the room when I'm doing a session. That's probably only the second time I've ever done it. And what I was doing was I was mentoring another hypnotist, actually two other hypnotists, and they brought this woman and her daughter in. And I was working with her, and so her daughter's in the room, two other hypnotists, me and her. And
a whole audience there.
Yeah, I know. And she just had this story that before the hypnosis that kept coming up where she was letting her daughter down. But everything that I saw in the room showed me someone who really loved her daughter and actually had her daughter's love. And so in the middle of the session, I don't know what got into me, but I said, and now, but you told me this story, which I think is just absolute bullshit. This is the most bullshit story I've ever heard in my life about you not being a good mother. I've seen the way you interact with your daughter. By the way, her daughter was not a child. She was a grown woman. So otherwise I would not use that language.
You're just yelling this stuff out with a 4-year-old in the room, right? No.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so I think it's time for you to give yourself credit and stop this bullshit story. And after the session was out, God, the change in this woman, I love it when you push all the right buttons and they come out of hypnosis and they've got this glow and you can just see it. You can see that the shift has happened and shift has happened. and
quite the leather
so,
chair, right?
Yeah. So she leaves with her daughter and just floats out of the room. It was and I was talking with the two mentorees. And I said, I don't normally do that. I don't know what got into me. And they said, no, we've heard her use that term. We've heard her use that exact term. And that was the perfect word for her because it was just, you just get a feeling. But that was the only time I've ever used profanity in a session where the client didn't use it first. It just felt right that time. And if you connected with the client, it can be right.
I was getting a request from the Q&A box that, that form that I used to get the client intake. We'll send that out in all the replays after this as well. I was getting a few requests for that. This is a story I think I've been watching the content. Again, we're mentioning our Master Hypnotist course, which is now an online digital access library. It's 36 individual lessons, everything from pain relief hypnosis to instant and rapid inductions. Instant inductions you can do seated, instant inductions you can do standing, deep diving into the age regression content back and forth in terms of your style and my style. So, the mindset of two instructors, the favorite anecdote for me was that it's the first break of our class and someone comes up to me and goes, hey, you guys don't agree on everything. This is great. I am loving this. And I pull you aside to go, hey, Sean, we need to argue more. Which we got along for the most part, which again, now it's live access online. You're able to stream everything at your own pace from your home, from your office. It's all downloadable as well. Check out masterhypnotistcourse.com. That gives you instant access, which again, 2 awesome bonuses will come your way. No matter where you are in the world, we're going to ship you a commemorative flash drive that has all the content downloaded for you. Makes it a whole lot easier because it's 29 gigabytes of stuff. And then once you complete an online exam, you're going to receive a certificate signed from both me and Sean, which if you're curious, that means I'm printing them. I'm signing my name, mailing a box of them to Sean. He signs them. So it's going to go on the whole world tour to get to you. I was watching, and that's masterhypnotistcourse.com. Payment plans are available. I was watching the content, and there's a segment that is kind of along this theme here, that I was talking about doing a control room metaphor with somebody, and it's the second appointment. This guy has now quit smoking. And the metaphor that I'd often build towards in control room is, you're turning up the confidence, you're turning down that appetite, you're making whatever adjustments are necessary. But now you find that part of you that used to require cigarettes, and it's clearly no longer working as you've already now quit smoking. But now allow yourself to go through whatever process you feel is necessary to just shut that thing down once and for all. And I rattle off some examples. Some people would just unplug it. Some people would destroy it. This is your time. Go through whatever process you feel is necessary. And as this thing is done and finalized, nod your head. Mm-hmm. So this was a state trooper who had to postpone one of his appointments. You're laughing because I think you're remembering this one. He had to postpone his appointment. I'll make this as polite as I possibly can. He was having to work overtime because he was responding to a situation. Family in a minivan hits a deer. The antlers go through the windshield. The car is totaled. Kids are crying on the side of the road. And he's on the phone going, yeah, I'm kind of shook up from this. I've never had to do this before, but I had to put the animal out of its misery.
Oh, man.
He goes, hey, take the kids over here, have them, look at the mountains. And he goes over and takes care of it. So I'm in the session with this guy. Go through whatever process you feel is necessary to shut this thing down once and for all. As it's complete, nod your head. And he sits there for a moment. And then... and it's just immediately I'm going, oh my God, he shot the cigarettes. And I ask him afterwards, he goes, yep, put those fill in the blank effers out of their misery. All right. That's what everybody does. Which I'll say it this way. I wish I was clever enough to come up with stuff like that. Which, yes, in the manual that I handed out, that story is in there. Just to find the student who catches that little bit of language on their own and goes, do you really tell your clients to do this? Like, that's a check to see who's actually reading through the manual. Our second point we wanted to address here is that very often, people have a previous base of education, whether they're self-taught, whether they're going to a lot of classes, yet now they're purchasing courses online, they're going to conventions, they're taking trainings. Do you have any tips in terms of, here's a person who's already actively seeing clients, and now they want to incorporate new strategies into what they do?
As far as how to pick up the new strategies?
Yeah, let's say that they're already working and seeing clients, but now they've learned some new technique. They've learned some new metaphor, some twist on a strategy they've already been using. Let me ask it in a slightly leading way. Would you recommend they scrap everything that they've been doing and throw an entirely new session out there?
No, but I think that we need a lot of different tools because we encounter a lot of different clients. And I mean, there are tools that I use once every couple of years. I took a lot of training, and I had some very, very good trainers. But I've been to all the conventions, and I collaborate with my fellow hypnotists. So I'm always learning new things. But it comes in handy because sometimes you're in an odd situation. You get this very unusual client, and you need to try something different. And it's just wonderful to have extra tools. My goodness, I'm trying to think of something that I've pulled out of my memory banks recently. A timeline style of regression. I hadn't used it in probably 3 or 4 years, and then I needed to do some age regression with a client, and the client seemed to me very kinesthetic, and just to stand that guy up and walk him on that timeline was just the perfect thing for that client. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't used that type of regression in probably 3 or 4 years when I finally had to pull it out and use it with that fellow. And for him, it was the right thing. It just felt right to me to speak kinesthetically. It felt right to me to use that particular tool with that client, and it turned out to be the perfect one for him. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, I mean, I'd share there's a nuance here that I'll shorten the metaphor here, the story of this. There was an interview with a band that was big in the 70s and 80s. Then they broke up. Then they got back together. And the story was that they were now on tour and they were doing the old songs. But now that they've been on the tour bus together, they were writing new songs. And I think it was an interview in Rolling Stone where it was quoted that, well, how do you work in new songs to the concert? They say, well, of course, we open up the concert with the songs that everybody is there to hear. We get them up on their feet. They're so excited to see us again. We're all together. We're not fighting anymore. And we do the song. Then we hit them with another hit song. They're still on their feet. It's at this point we fold in one of the songs from the new album that we're working on. Mm-hmm. And this is our test to say that if they all just sit down and they're just staring at us, well, maybe we need to work on that song. If they're still on their feet at the end of it, okay, good to go. Let's keep this one in the works. So that stuck with me when I read that, because here's moments where I go to conventions too. You and I are going to be in Florida in a couple of weeks from now. Going to Hypno Thoughts, going to the NGH convention, going to various trainings, or participating in events such as this, buying products online. I picked up the Arrow from the Jacquins, and I've been folding that into some sessions in recent months. And that same story back to the band of going, okay, well, here's the foundation of what I found that I'm really good at. Yet here's something I'm seeing. This is an alternate way to go about a specific change. And folding that in as part of the process. So almost like the band getting up and going, hey, here's the hit song, and then sandwiched in the middle, here's something new, which allowed that confidence to grow in even greater, even stronger. So not quite throwing everything out in one pass, but finding those mechanisms to bring in just a few new nuances into those sessions along the way.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a story of, you and I have both spent time with Captain Ron Esslinger, and there was some bit of patter I heard him say one time around, it was like this progressive muscle relaxation, not an induction, but using it as a technique. We're at the end of it creating a shield around you, like a second skin. And this became an extended metaphor so that before the hand even reaches the face with the intention to bite, the hand finds something better to do. Mm-hmm. And this is a couple of years ago, as the story will date it. Woman comes in and she has seen one of the sequels to the Twilight movie series. And there's some nuance of which I really haven't seen all of them, but Team Jacob. The experience, I'm going to alienate the audience in that one with 10 people getting that joke. But it's the experience where in one of the movies, they have the vampire baby. And to protect the vampire baby from the werewolves, she puts a protective shield, like a field of energy around the baby vampire, because that's a thing that you do. And she's having these issues with trust. She's having these issues of, she's up at night worrying about the world that the baby's going to grow up in. And she then rambles off the phrase, if I could only put like a protective shield around this little girl and then I know she'd be safe, I'd be able to sleep at night.
Interesting.
And suddenly there's a connection, so bringing that in part of the process.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there, I mean, as in the research that you've been doing, I'm curious to ask you this, are there strategies that you've been using differently in working with clients that kind of fit into this theme of incorporating new learnings? Or maybe something you've recently pulled out of your process and by doing so found you became much more direct, much more effective?
I think one thing that I've been playing with that is going to find its way into my sessions. Some sessions are the same. I'll do just with the induction and the initial deepeners. And I got into a rut where I was doing a Dave Ellman induction and then a 10 down to 1 deepener and then 3 vote deepeners. And then I would launch into whatever type of therapy was necessary. And in the research that I've been doing, I've wanted to get the volunteers as deep as possible, as quickly as possible, but more emphasis on the depth than on the speed. And so what I was doing was I was doing an Ellman induction, and then I was doing the Dave Ellman Esdale state deepener, the level A, B, and C. And my goodness, I mean, they are so deep in hypnosis after that. Now you will get the occasional person that, honest to God, goes into hypnotic Esdale, the coma state, and that's fine because you can have them come up a little bit and then you can work with them. But now I'm thinking that I may do that with my sessions where I want really good depth of hypnosis. Like, for instance, if I'm going to do a regression. So that's kind of something that I've discovered. I mean, generally, I would not use Ellman's Esdale deepener for anything other than if I wanted to achieve the Esdale state. Like, for instance, if someone had terrible pain and I wanted to give them an experience of feeling absolutely no pain, just that feeling of relief. But that was the only reason why I would ever use that particular induction and deepener just like that. And now I'm thinking that might become a part of my sessions. Now it's going to add another 5 minutes to the induction and deepening part of the session, but I think I'm going to start doing it. So I've been doing a lot of research. I hate to call it research. I like to call it experiments, because when I use the word research, people think that I'm doing real good documentation, and I'm not. I'm not really great at documenting. I'm great at playing, but not at documenting. So, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on trance and depth of trance, and what you can accomplish with really, really good deep trance.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's one change that's gonna happen in my clinical work, just based on my experimentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we were teaching together at the Master Hypnotist course, you were getting into some of the themes around things that you found, whether it's the body temperature shifts, whether it's the effect upon caffeine and how well they do in the session, these little nuances that, again, we're also promoting here the Master Hypnotist course, which was a live event, but now it's a streaming on-demand event. You can check that out at masterhypnotistcourse.com. Get instant access to the 36 lessons. It's more than 20 hours of content, all sorts of techniques for change, inductions, and you even demo that A down to C. We had to rename it. The gentleman who did all of our video shooting and editing, his name is Dale. And as I was looking at the content of the Esdale, I'm going, why does he spell it wrong? Because he got clever and went Esdale. state.
Yes.
So on the membership platform, I made sure I spelled it right so people don't go, Jason and Sean don't know how to spell the Esdale state. Which again, that streams to you instantly. You get instant access online. And also, no matter where you are in the world, we're going to ship you a flash drive with all the content downloaded for you. Saves you on the bandwidth of downloading about 30 gigs of stuff. And then also, once you finish an exam, we're going to mail you a certificate signed by the both of us as well. And to kind of wrap up this theme of hypnotic collaboration, we're going to wrap this in about 5 minutes time to keep this short and to the point. You know, you and I both attend conventions. We both connect with other instructors. We both have become friends with folks around the world. What is it you found to be the benefit of just keeping that open communication, whether it's teaching together as you and I did, or just keeping that learning ongoing? What have you found one of those benefits to be as the work progresses?
Well, actually, it was funny when you and I were teaching together. I think that it wasn't just I told them what I knew and then you told them what you knew. It was funny because things would come up that maybe wouldn't have even were not planned to be taught in the class. And it would come up simply because of something that one of us would say. And we got to a lot of material that I didn't think we were going to get to. Let's talk about the caffeine. I mean, that was incredible. We were on the topic of things that we learned and things that we knew, and then after our years of practice and seeing clients, it turned out not to be true at all. And so the client tells you, they call you on the phone and they say, should I drink coffee before my session? And I always used to say, doesn't really matter. If you normally have it, and if you don't, well, don't. And then it was one of the experiments, and I was experimenting with the effect of alcohol. That was one experiment on hypnosis. And that was fun. And the other one
was the after hours of class when we were.
That's right. we did a lot of experimenting with that. And then the caffeine experiment that I did, and I found that when someone has had caffeine, they will still go to a sufficient level of trance to do the hypnosis. The issue turns out that they don't feel like they went very deep in hypnosis because their body is keyed up with this caffeine in it. And often if the client doesn't feel that she went very deep in hypnosis, that can have an effect on how the therapy works with her. If she feels like she went to la la land, that's almost always a good thing. And so the caffeine, although it's not going to prevent her from getting the benefits of the hypnosis, it will change the experience for her and make her think that maybe she didn't go so deep in hypnosis. So now the answer when the client calls me and says, should I not drink coffee before I come in? I say, that's probably a good idea. It's probably better if you don't have the coffee. But the reason is not simple. It's not because it would really affect the hypnosis, but it would affect the experience of the hypnosis for that client.
You know, we got onto a similar theme in the class when we were teaching. You know, we did 2 different demos of age regression and talked through them in massive detail. And I think there's where I talked about the fact that, you know, because there's an interactive nature to the process, I was hearing at the next appointment that, you know, well, that was really interesting and I've been doing so much better since then, yet I don't think I was as deep last week. And it was because the perception of session 1, perhaps in a similar way, very direct suggestion and format, getting into that deep relaxation state. But because now the next appointment, if we went in that direction or used anything else that was interactive in nature, because of the interaction, there wasn't as much of a perception of depth. So it's kind of the origin of one of my catchphrases of when all else fails, apply suggestion. As you respond out loud, it carries you even deeper. And as you let that finger raise, as you've done that, it takes you even deeper. You know, so pre-framing something in such a way that builds that expectation and builds that greater success out of it as well.
Exactly. And if I had a client that did that who said, well, I felt like I was deeper in the first session, then she's given me some really important information. And that information is that the next time she comes in to see me, if she comes in for a third session, I'm going to work a lot on deepening because that's important to that particular client. Yeah, it's all different, right?
Yeah, and I'm getting the request here for, yes, we're going to be doing a replay of this. Yes, we'll be doing an audio download. In fact, I think, hey, I'm happy with this. Let's repurpose this as a podcast this week as well, as that way we could reach more people on this, if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
fine.
cool. Yeah, and we'll do transcription as well. As several people have mentioned that these little nuggets of the way you delivered that bit of patter, the way you delivered that one, just give us a couple of days because I don't do that. I outsource that. Well, cool. So once again, for more like this, head over to masterhypnotistcourse.com. It was a sellout event. We had students in from all over the world. And while it was fun to head out to Las Vegas and hang out together for all those days, you now get the experience in the comfort of your own home, your own office. The content streams to you in high definition video. You can download the videos. A lot of it's lecture. You can download the audios. And I'm a big fan of the mobile university. As I'm often driving and listening to various things in my car. I fold in the nuance of segments of the program may be hypnotic in nature and should not be listened to in a place where you should be giving it your full attention. The classic Monopoly get out of jail free card. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Sean?
Not a one. I'll just.
I'd share my favorite experience of the class, I think, was day 2. Where I referenced, because I did a certification class with you back in 2008. And it was a moment where I was referencing, I learned this from you during that class at that Hampton Inn in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And I think you responded, I didn't teach you that. And it turned to, here's a Jason Lynette original. So, so the experience of, again, customizing to the client, incorporating new learnings, and then refining that language. And again, rethinking how we do it. That's that Master Hypnotist course approach. So check that out, masterhypnotistcourse.com. All the details over there. Jump inside. We look forward to seeing you inside. Thanks, everybody. Hey, it's Jason Lynette here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program. Thank you so much for sharing it on your social media streams, leaving your reviews online. And once again, head over to masterhypnotistcourse.com. That's where you can get instant access to the masterclass that Sean and I taught together last year in Vegas. It all streams to you in high definition, plus complete the exam, we'll mail you a certificate, and we'll also ship you that commemorative flash drive as well. Digest this information, put it to use, and start collaborating even greater with your clients. masterhypnotistcourse.com.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I want you to be the first to find out as we upload new content here online. So do this right now. Click subscribe right next to this video, and you will be the first to find out as I share further resources, further downloads, and other really cool things to come your way. See you soon.